Hello, and thank you for joining us today in our study of the book of Mark. Today we're in the first half of Mark chapter 6 in verses 1 through 29. And in this text, there's two or three key events that are going to take place. And I want us to spend a little bit of time looking at some lessons from them and some things that we can pull from them. Because I think there's some things that are rather interesting here in this section of the text. First of all, at the very beginning of the chapter, you have Jesus trying to go through and teach in his hometown area of Nazareth, in his own country. And yet, one of the things that he is met with is a great deal of doubt. Because these are people that have known him growing up. These are people that know his family. These are people that know his brothers and all of these various things. And so as he tries to teach, they don't really want to listen because they don't believe that he is who he claims to be. And it's not unusual for the ones who are the hardest to convince to be the ones who have known us the longest. Because they think they know us, or they remember what we used to be like, or they remember what we were like when we were little. For many preachers, the hardest thing in the world to do is to go back home to the congregation where you grew up in order to preach because they remember the little kid that was there and they still think of you that way. And yet at the same time, Jesus, it's even going to limit what he can do in this particular area because they just simply do not believe in him. And so it's going to cause a great deal of difficulty for Jesus. And he is going to have to deal with the fact that he is not even welcome in his own country. Jesus is going to make the statement in verse number 4, a prophet is not without honor except in his own country, among his own relatives, and in his own house. And that's basically going to be the way that it is. There are going to be people throughout the rest of the land who are going to believe in Jesus, who are going to recognize the truth of what it is that he is saying and what it is that he is doing. And yet the ones that are going to doubt the most are going to be the ones at home. We oftentimes also see this when individuals are trying to make changes in their lives. That there will be those who will trust them, and there will be those that will help them, and there will be those that will encourage them along the way. And yet oftentimes the ones that are the hardest to convince of the desire to change and of the willingness to change, or of the fact that there has been a change, are the people closest to home. And so because of that, there is more work that has to be done. And oftentimes time is the only answer to those particular issues. And so even with Jesus, it was such that there was doubt at home. In the second place, as you come down later in the text, you read concerning Herod and how that as the popularity and as the fame of Jesus increases, Herod is going to be convinced that Jesus is not Jesus of Nazareth, but rather John the Baptist or John the Baptizer brought back to life because of his guilt and because of his fear at what has happened. Sometimes the conscience is a very troubling thing. And it is a troubling thing for Herod at this particular juncture because Herod knows that what he did to John was wrong. And as it is recounted, beginning here in verse 14 and going down through verse 29, of what it was that transpired and the circumstances surrounding the death of John, you recognize that it was nothing more than a personal vendetta that Herodias had against John because John had the audacity to state that what they were doing was wrong. And yet Herod was not upset at John. As a matter of fact, he listened to John and he believed John. And yet at the same time, because of his own foolish mistake in making a promise, he is going to kill John. And he is going to deal with deep regret and fear because of it. Our actions have consequences. And when we are ones who know what is right and who know what the right choice is, it is going to haunt us when we make the wrong choice or when we put ourselves in a situation where we violate what we know to be the right thing to do. And that's exactly what it does with Herod on this occasion. But the third thing I want us to notice from this chapter is out of this same section. We see several references to John here, and he is described here as John the Baptist. What does that mean? You know, there are some who take the meaning that is being utilized as being that of the Baptist religion or the Baptist denomination that is so prevalent in our world today. That somehow he was the founder of it, or he was the originator of it, or he was at least a member of it. And yet, that's not it at all. As a matter of fact, this term is not being utilized in the sense of that religious organization at all. The word in the original language simply means a one who baptizes, or one who more specifically immerses. It was a statement that was made that described what it was he was known for. He was known for baptizing people, which is why oftentimes you'll hear me refer to him not as John the Baptist, but as John the Baptizer, because it was actually simply a title of what he did. And that was oftentimes the case that was uh, utilized for individuals in that day and time. So if somebody was known for being a craftsman or for being a carpenter or for being a sheep herder or whatever the case might be, they would be ones who were known by the title of what they did, and that would be a part of the name they were known for. And that's exactly what you have here with John. John's preaching and John's baptizing. Remember, all Judea and the area around Palestine are going to come out to John throughout the course of his preaching and his ministry, and he is simply going to be known as John the Baptizer, because it was easier to find somebody who had been baptized by John than someone who hadn't. And so that's going to be how he's known. He wasn't a Baptist from the standpoint of the Baptist religious organization. It didn't exist at the time. But rather, he was simply known amongst the people as one who baptizes. These are some of the things that I've seen in Mark chapter 6. I hope they have been beneficial to you. We will continue next time with the second half of Mark chapter 6 and look at some more valuable points from this particular section. I hope that you'll join us then. But until then, have a great day.